Welcome everybody to Mom Street USA. My name is Kate, aka the Disney Cicerone, and joining me today, as always, is the lovely Wishes Mama, aka Jacque is her real name, her government name, as we say. Tonight we are going to be taking questions from all of you. So we have gotten some questions in advance from our Mom Street community, but we'll also be taking some questions on the show as well, and we'll intersperse those as well with these questions. So just it'll be a show answering what you want to know, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a little all over the place. We've got tons of questions from kind of a little bit of everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to give you guys some information. And as we go through these questions, we encourage both chats on our side, on my side and on Kate's side, to give us any info that you guys have or experiences that you guys have with the questions we're answering. Some of the stuff that we've got on here may not be things that Kate and I have done personally. So we're always here for whatever information our chat can provide as well.
Yep, absolutely. And if you guys have additional follow-up questions to something we're talking about, or just something pops into your mind, feel free to put it in the chat. If we don't get it like right as we're answering this question, we'll make sure to write them down and get to it when we have a pause. So yeah, so should we dive right in?
Yeah, let's just go top to bottom. It's good. Okay. Like I said, it's going to be kind of all over the place, but we're just going to go with it. So these are kind of in the order that we received them. We just started making notes of the questions that you guys were asking. So we will start it off here at the top with Slay, if she's in here somewhere or not, was asking about the best some Christmas party questions. So the best place to watch the Very Merry Christmas Parade. And then any must-dos during the Christmas season at Walt Disney World. Now, I know that Slay is getting ready for a trip, so I'm sure that these questions are geared towards that. As far as parade goes, I'll kind of give my answer, and then Kate, if you've got anything else to add, go for it. Okay. Two places that I typically like to watch the parade if I can. The first, and we're talking Magic Kingdom at Disney World for this, if anyone is like, what are we talking about for the Christmas parade at the party? So the first one that I like to do is the corner as you're coming from essentially coming from like Country Bears and that whole area towards the Hall of Presidents. That corner that you turn on the outside of the corner is one of my favorite places to watch the parade. And I've talked about this in like TikToks on my account before. You get a really great view of the parade coming towards you, and then you also get the side view as they turn the corner. So that is one of my favorite places to watch, and that's like my go-to. Now, there is limited space kind of in that area, but that would be where I would start to look. The other place is actually Kirk, our friend Kirk at Walrus Carp, did the parade on Tuesday night, and he stood around the hub in a really good place that I wanted to mention as well. So he was, and I'm going to try my best to explain this, and I can always do visuals if people need it. He was, as think about the hub, like where the partner statue is, he was kind of on the Tomorrowland side of the hub as they come around the curve.
I have this map. This might help them visualize it a little bit.
So that would be kind of in right where the purple and yellow meet on the Tomorrowland side, which from my view is the right hand side.
This is actually like fireworks viewing, but yeah, the map's still the same.
Yeah, so that view. So the parade comes across that red bridge, so to speak, and around the purple and down the yellow to the green, if that makes sense. So that would be where he stood, right where that purple and yellow on the right-hand side meet. And that was also a really great view because it was very similar. You get the view of them coming towards you and the view of them going past you at the same time. So you get kind of that extended look at the parade as it comes by. So those would be my two suggestions for where to watch pretty much any parade at Magic Kingdom at Disney World, not just the Christmas parade, because all of the parades take that same route. If you're talking the cavalcades, Festival of Fantasy, the Halloween parade did, the Christmas parade, any of those all take that same route.
Yeah. And I pulled this up because they also have the fireworks show at the Christmas party. And so I was like, let's show them the best place to watch fireworks as well if we're talking about location. So this actually was from, I want to give credit to Walt Disney World Prep School made this. So I didn't make this. So just disclaimer, thanks, Walt Disney World Prep School. But it's a really, really wonderful map because it does show you where you will not be able to see fireworks because they're obscured by trees and other things. Mm-hmm. So I really love this map. The green's obviously the best places for the fireworks. The yellow is a good view, but you don't want to be in the red areas, and the purple is projections. You'll only be able to see projections. So that's great for that Christmas show as well. Those are the places that you want to be. So
yeah,
super helpful.
And then kind of part 2 of Slay's question was talking about must-dos during the Christmas season at Walt Disney World. And I had meant to mention this before I jumped into the parade, but forgot. If you have more questions about Christmas things on both coasts, we did an entire Christmas episode 2 episodes ago. So check that out. It is available on our YouTube and on our podcast. So definitely check that out if you're someone who is getting ready to go and you need more information than just kind of the little glimpses we're giving you now. We went into detail about everything they have to offer.
A lot of detail. That is a Mom Street
detail.
USA. Mom Street USA is what you search for the podcast, and same with YouTube. So Mom Street USA.
And those links are also in our bios. So if you are searching and can't find it, hop back to our bios and you'll be able to find those through there. But so some of the must-dos, just some of the highlights that we talked about. We talked about at Epcot. There's a lot going on at Epcot. They have the cookie stroll at Epcot, and they have the different scavenger hunts that they do through the holidays that are both really, really cute, fun little extra things you can do while you're in the parks. They also have the Christmas tree. Is it the Christmas tree stroll? I can never remember what the official name of it is called, but the Christmas tree little walkthrough that you can do at Disney Springs.
Yeah. I want to say stroll, but
I don't remember if they use that terminology again or not.
I'll look it up while you talk.
Yeah. But they have that at Disney Springs as well, which is like a little tour of lots of different decorated Christmas trees. You can also find really fun gingerbread creations in a lot of the resorts. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. If you're looking for more detail, go to that episode that we have done previously, but you can find lots of gingerbread creations at a lot of the different resorts have them. Mostly the deluxe resorts have those. And that's something you can do. You can resort hop and look at all of the decorations and the Christmas trees, those types of things. So those are all really great options for things that you can do that are Christmas themed.
Yeah, I think it is the Christmas tree stroll. I had it, and then like Disney's website's not working properly. It's a shocker. Thank you, Eisner. All right. Anyway, sorry. Wrong
name
show.
Just keeps coming up over and over again.
Yeah. So those few small thoughts about Christmas. So let's move on to our
So exactly. So those were a couple little things about Christmas. So let's hop over to Disneyland now, right?
Yeah. We are going, I got a question from Rue on Discord. Any thoughts on the Castle Inn Hotel? Now this one, I don't think there's one at Disney World, so I'm assuming you're talking Disneyland because a lot of these questions were Disneyland. And I have stayed at the Castle Inn. It is, if you're looking at Disneyland, of course, there's the 2 main roads that go by it. We have Harbor Boulevard, which is the one that's vertical, and then we have Catella, which is the bottom, like around the bottom side of Disneyland. Now, the Harbor Boulevard ones are usually the ones that I do recommend. Castle Inn is kind of like near the intersection of Catella and Harbor, so it's a bit of a walk. If you have littles, keep that in mind. If they're in strollers, maybe it's not so big a deal that you can do it. It's about a 10-minute walk to the gate, which, I mean, sounds like nothing for Disney World standards. But Disneyland, at the end of the day, It feels like a lot. And it does get a little bit dark. There are some homeless people in the area and things once you get a little bit further away from Disneyland. So, just something to think about. Usually I still feel pretty safe around there, but just something to think about. But if you do have kids that really want that, like, if they're very much into the princess experience, they want the princess experience. It looks like a castle from the outside. I have a photo of it. And that really is kind of the draw of the Castle Inn, because it looks like this. It's
Oh,
got
how
turrets
cute.
and it's themed on the inside too. And the lobby has castle theme. I thought I had more. This is what the rooms look like, though. They are
Aw.
just a little bit dated, but they're still kind of castle-y themed.
Yeah. It's
So
very like
it's
medieval. I feel the
yeah.
medieval vibes from that.
Yeah. So if you have a kiddo who's just in love with princesses, but you're on a budget and you're like, I can only afford so much, and I think we all are at this point. But
Especially
it
this
is
time of year.
oh gosh, right? So it's a great option for that if you just really want to make your kids stay and feel extra magical. Maybe if it's like the only time you might be able to get to Disneyland, but you're on a budget and make it feel a little more magical. I think it is a good option. It got pretty good reviews from everything I've seen recently because I went like 6 years ago, so it's been a while since I've been there. So I looked up some reviews. It seemed to be got pretty good reviews. It has free parking and Wi-Fi and a decent pool. And I heard that the air conditioners are actually somewhat quiet there, which is shocking because almost all of the motels that are surround Disneyland, all the good neighbor hotels, have extremely loud air conditioning units.
Yeah. Those like
So
old school giant ones
they're
that
like,
are like, "Ah." Yep. Yep, exactly.
which I mean, can be good for white noise, I
Say, I
guess,
guess
with littles.
the thing that drives me crazy is it's not consistent. They're like super
No.
loud, and then when they kick off, it's like,
They're like, "Choo, choo, choo," and they're like, clunk, 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 clunk. It's like, okay, all right. And then the baby wakes up screaming, and you're like, this is great. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, so I would say it is a good option for a hotel. Probably wouldn't be my first. I would pick something that's a little bit closer, but to the parks. But yeah,
Nice.
thanks for that question.
Yeah. All right. Sticking with Disneyland, and our friend Rue had quite a few questions, so we're happy to answer them. They were asking which airport, LAX or John Wayne?
This is an easy one. I would say John Wayne, which is SNA is the airport code, mainly because it's the closest. It's 15 miles away from Disneyland, and so it's cheaper to get to Disneyland. It's easier. You don't have to cross town. If you fly into LAX, it is really hard to get across town sometimes, especially at rush hour. It's LA, so you have to travel across the city at rush hour. So just keep that in mind. And it is 34 miles away from the parks at LAX versus 15. So you're going to be traveling for a while. If you're taking a Lyft or Uber, it's like $50 to $60 ish, and that's kind of the low side sometimes if it's really high, high demand time. So versus John Wayne is usually between 30 to 40 something. So, it's a lot cheaper. Another option is the Long Beach airport is another option that's 24 miles away. It's LGB is the airport code. But I would always recommend flying into John Wayne. It's also a smaller airport. They seem to have less delays, and it's just easier to navigate. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So, that's what I would recommend, John Wayne.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then kind of follow up with that, airport tram versus Uber. What's our best route to get to the hotel in Disneyland?
Well, it's funny because I was like, an airport tram. Like, how come I didn't know about this? So I was like, oh, I have to look this up. I'm like, okay. So there is a metro line that does go from, I think it's LAX. That's the Metro Line Green to Norwalk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Anybody in LA wants to yell at me, feel free. But then they have to take, after that, you have to take the Metro Express Line 460, which is a bus to Disneyland. So I don't recommend that as a method of travel to Disneyland. That
sounds like a lot.
Yeah, no, especially with your luggage.
Yeah.
And I don't know what neighborhoods all that go through and stuff because I'm not local, but I would 100% recommend taking an Uber or Lyft. They're very easy from the airports there, or rent a car would be another option if you just would rather do that. So
yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to jump ahead just briefly, Kate, because I've got some people asking in here one of the questions that we're going to answer later. So I'm just going to go ahead and answer it now.
Yeah, please.
Because people are asking about transportation also then to Disney World. So let's hop back over to Orlando. This was a question that our good friend Rhonda had asked. So we will make sure to answer that. And then Kathy is asking about that here in my chat. So a couple recommendations for transportation to and from Disney World from Orlando from MCO. We all know that our beloved Magical Express is no more. So a couple different options. There are two different shuttle buses that run in a similar fashion to what the Magical Express did. So it's that same style. You've got the Sunshine Flyer and you've got the Mears. So both of those are options that run from MCO to Disney property to your hotel, wherever you need to get. The prices are comparable, and I hadn't really looked them up since we talked about this early on in our Mom Street, kind of the best ways to get there. But the Sunshine Flyer, if we're talking round trip, so airport to your resort, and then on the end of your stay, resort back to your back to the airport, is $32 per adult and $20 per kid. So that's round trip. So that's both ways. Divide that in half if you're looking one way, for whatever reason.
And I will say that they had a Black Friday sale recently that was like 20% off, and so I was able to catch that. And I feel like Mears doesn't usually tend to have discounts, but because Sunshine Flyer is so new, they do have discounts from time to time, so you might want to give them a follow on their social media and whatnot, because you might be able to catch them at a sale that will get you a discount.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were doing like a kids ride free with a paid adult deal at one point too. Yeah. And then Mears, you're looking at, again, for round trip, $32 per adult or $27 per kid. So the kid fee for Mears is higher.
Higher. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's something, now if you're doing a solo trip, or you and your significant other, or you and a friend, whatever it may be, for the adults, you've got kind of your choice. But if you're traveling with kids, definitely look into that. And then we've talked a little bit, like I said earlier in our episodes, about traveling to and from. MCO does have 10 different car rental options that operate directly out of the airport. So all of this information was in, I think, our second episode we did. So if you're looking for that information, message us on Discord. We can help you, or send us a message on Instagram, wherever we can help you find that information as well. But Ubers and Lyfts, you're looking anywhere from 35 to 44, 45, depending on how many people you have and where you're going and time of day and all that good stuff. So those are the three best options that I would say from MCO to property.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I would say Sunshine Flyer too. The downside is with Sunshine Flyer, because they're so new, they have very strict operating hours. So they will start picking you up from your hotel at 4 a.m. is the earliest they'll start picking you up for like a 7 a.m. flight is what they say. They start operating 7 a.m. and then they end at 11 p.m. So if you have a late flight in, you might be out of luck for a ride to your hotel. And I have not experienced that with Mears. With Mears, even when my flight's delayed and I get in at like almost 1 a.m., they still have somebody there that will take me. I don't know if that's true if Sunshine Flyer has somebody hang out just in case if they know somebody's coming in, but they seem to have stricter operating hours just because of them being a startup. So if you know you're traveling from some other location where you're going to get in late at night, maybe consider Mears might be the better option for that, just for some peace of mind for you.
Yeah, and Amanda, our good friend over at Book It with Amanda, our travel agent friend, is saying Sunshine Flyer is not 24 hours. Mears is a 24-hour service. She said she also recommends a private company called Away We Go for travel needs from the airport. And thank you, Rhonda, for my wishing bottles. I appreciate you. So that's kind of both ends of both ends of the transportation question. And again, when Kate and I kind of first started all of this off, that was one of the first things we did, was talking about how to get where you need to go. So take a look back in our podcast archives and our YouTube archives, and you guys will find that information as well.
All right, so we'll hop back up. How do you prepare your little ones for the heat and amount of walking? And that is from Mystic Phoenix, aka Allie. Allie is asking that one. So
fantastic question.
How do you prepare your little ones?
Yeah, it can definitely be a lot. The last trip that I took with my kids was in October, but it was very, very warm. Like not summer level, but it was like upper 80s when we were there. And so we did portable fans, which if you're looking for a really nice handheld portable fan, Kate's got one in her Amazon storefront that is the one that we ordered, and it was fantastic.
Yay! Oh, I'm glad it worked out.
Yes, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Was it the little bear one?
Yes.
Yes. I love that one. Because it's also a flashlight and it will charge your phone. It's like three things in one.
Yeah, it was
The link's in my
wonderful.
bio
It
for
was
my storefront list in case
Yes,
you're
and
looking
I
for it.
like next trip I need to order all of us one because I had
Yeah.
one that we were just rotating through because I wasn't expecting it to be as hot as it was.
Yeah.
And so I did not prepare. I should have bought more.
These
But
are not that expensive.
definitely,
They were like
yeah,
$14 or something.
no,
They're
yeah, not
affordable.
bad at all. So handheld fans, make sure you have water bottles, refillable water, and refill those water bottles as often as you can. My husband and I would bring like bigger water bottles than we thought we would need because, kid ones are not usually super big.
Yeah.
And that way we made sure that ours were always full. So if they needed a refill, we could refill theirs and then top ours off whenever we needed to.
That's smart.
So that's definitely something you want to look into. Taking frequent breaks. If your kids need a break, take a break. If it's too hot, if they can't, if they're having issues, go find a quick service place you can order a quick snack and sit down in. Find a place, even if it's just in the shade where you can get your fan out, let them lay down. I've sat on benches and let my kids lay across my lap and fanned them, whatever
Yeah.
you kind of need to do to give them their moment.
Yeah. Christina says electrolytes are also important too. And I agree.
Yes.
Sometimes those drinks that have the in it. And I know for me, I've also used that, what is it called? The IV, like the packets that are like
Liquid
liquid
IV.
IV. I've
Yeah.
used those too. Sometimes the flavor, it has to be cold though, or I'm like, it's gross. So,
Yeah.
and pickles are full of electrolytes. Thank you, Lem, for that pro tip. I would also say my son is like hates the heat, and anytime we've gone in the heat, he's like instantly wants to go back to the hotel. He's just done. So I've learned for him the only thing that helps with him is a cooling towel, which I do have some of those in my Amazon storefront too. But you can find them all kinds of places, and you make them wet underneath the faucet, and you kind of just like snap them. And anytime they get warm again, you just snap them again or get them wet again. And you can put them on your neck. You can wrap them around your like wrists. You can lay them over your head if you're like walking in like Epcot. They're
Yeah.
so helpful for just cooling your body down or just feeling a little bit cooler. I really feel like the cooling towels have saved our family so many times in the heat, especially because none of us are used to it coming from Oregon. So
Yeah.
I really
Absolutely.
recommend the cooling towels. And
Yeah,
I also, go ahead.
I was going to say another thing that I would suggest is when you're planning out your day, and this isn't always possible, but do your best to kind of think about alternating maybe indoor and outdoor attractions. If you're going to be doing something like if you're over in like the Jungle Cruise area, do Jungle Cruise, do Magic Carpets, but then go inside and do Pirates because it's right around the corner and it's inside and it's cool. Kind of do those types of things. That way you're not outside constantly.
Yeah,
That way you
absolutely.
have that little bit of a break when you're inside riding the attraction, or having some of that queue be inside is enormously helpful. So definitely just waiting in those lines sometimes is all that you need to do. Even if it's just 10-15 minute wait, because I know sometimes lines with kids not always helpful, but even just a 10-15 minute wait inside can be enough sometimes to help them.
Yeah, and I really emphasize, especially with smaller kids or even elementary school age, taking that afternoon break really does make a huge difference when it's so hot outside, whether you swim or not. Sometimes not even swimming, sometimes just laying in your hotel where it's air conditioned really makes a huge difference to just get your body out of the heat for a little while. So I recommend that for sure. And Holly says she always mixes her liquid IV with more water than it says because it's much better that way. I'm going to try that next time, Holly, because it was so gross last time. I'm like, I know I need this, but it's so disgusting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Kathy's saying, I've also planned a movie and lunch during a super hot day at the AMC Theater. There is that AMC Theater at Disney Springs that you can always plan for as well. But yeah, definitely kind of planning ahead of time, especially if you're going during those hotter months or you're looking at the weather going, oh, it's going to be really warm. Thinking about where your spots are that you could maybe go inside versus outside. If you've got really, really littles, kids that are probably, I would say about 2 or under, utilize those baby care centers because almost always they've got a room in there that's just playing Disney movies on repeat, and they've got little tables and benches and stuff. So that's always something you can hop in there if your kiddo needs a snack and you've got something with you or you want to buy. They have a lot of stuff inside there that you can buy as well, and take it in there and let them sit in the AC and watch for a little bit and, kind of cool off that way as well.
Yeah, it's also where you can buy deodorant there. So in case you ever forget your deodorant, you can go to the baby care center and buy it. Not that I've done that or anything.
No, what, Kate? No, never.
Yeah, weird day in Epcot. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I also say I sometimes when I'm planning my Disney World vacation, especially because I really don't do well with the heat there. Kirk got a like front row show to that, unfortunately, when I was hanging out with him. I tend to schedule my dining reservations instead of dinner because we usually at the hotel and then we have to try to scramble to get back for dinner. Instead, what we do is we're really right around 11, 10:30 to 11 is when all the crowds really hit the parks anyway. So I tend to schedule our lunch right around 11:30. And that way we can go. And by that point, if we have rope dropped, we are ready for a break. We're ready to sit down. It is a night we can take a nice long sit in an air conditioned place. And then we're ready to get back out right about the time everybody else is going to lunch. And then we can kind of not wait quite as long in some lines, or we can go back to the hotel. But usually we have enough to do a couple more rides and then a break in the hotel. So
yeah, that's what we do too. Early lunch helps, and eating more frequently than you think you're going to need to. And small little snacks if it's really hot outside. Small meals, small snacks. You know your kids to know what it is they do best with, but smaller snacks and more frequent. That way they're not hangry on top of being hot and sweaty.
Yeah,
so those types of things. Yeah, exactly. So all of those. Those are that's our hopefully foolproof way to avoid maybe some meltdowns in the heat.
Yeah. And I would also say, as a prep for your trip, I usually recommend, I don't always do this, so full disclosure, because life's busy, but I do recommend trying to walk as much as possible the month at least to 6 weeks before your trip, because it will just give you more stamina, especially your kids if they're not used to walking a lot. We've all been indoors a lot, so if they're used to not walking a lot, it's a good practice for them to start walking. And it's good for you too. You'll feel a lot less, aches and pains and whatnot if you are prepared before you go. So
absolutely.
Go take some walks.
And Allie said that in her experience, the Seven Dwarfs line had the best AC in their tunnels. So if you're looking for an escape in that area of Magic Kingdom, hit up Seven Dwarfs tunnels.
Yeah, and they have that. They mean the queue. They also have the fans in the queue there too. So that queue is a good one. And Radiator Springs in Disneyland in California Adventure, they have a lot of Mister fans that run, which is really nice in that queue too. But it takes a while to get there sometimes if it's busy. So
right. Yeah, Amanda, I was just going to say Little Mermaid is always a good one for us too. I feel like that at Disney World, that's always a good one that you can count on the AC feeling good. Then there are plenty of places across all of the parks that you can have that. Epcot's got a ton that's inside. Almost everything there is inside, so that's not one you have to worry about quite as much. So it just really depends. Like I said, just plan accordingly. Plan your rides as much as you can. Sometimes you're at the mercy of Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes, and you can't always do that. But
it's definitely something to keep in mind, especially if you're going in those very hot months in the summertime. You really have to just work it into your plans, not just what we want to do, but how are we going to manage the heat? I think you have to.
Yeah.
It's not as bad in Disneyland because it still gets very hot, but it's not a humid heat, and it just something about it is easier. There's a lot more shade in Disneyland too. It's very much shadier, so I just feel like it's cooler in general. But
that's always helpful. So hopefully that helps whoever is looking for those tips. Hopefully. Yes. All right, so Allie's got another question for us. What do you recommend if your child is afraid of costume characters? Again, a really great question. So Kate, do you want to tackle it first?
Yeah. Well, I know what you're going to say here. I will say, just don't feel like you have to force them into it, just because you're going to Disney, or maybe you don't get to Disney often, or it might be the only time you can take them to Disney. it's going to be fairly traumatic for them if you're trying to force them or convince them to do it when they really don't want to.
Yeah.
So just they will eventually grow out of that fearful stage. It's just a phase, and almost all kids I know go through it at some point. They're just like, that's this big, like, I'm expecting Mickey to be like this big, and he's like this big. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that. So,
Right.
and then you have some tips for other
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
So a couple different things that I have found help, because my oldest, actually, the first trip that we took him on, every experience he had had up to that trip with any sort of mascot, costumed character, terrified, absolutely terrified. So we were like, okay, this could be really interesting.
Yeah.
But we knew he loved Mickey Mouse. Like, Mickey Mouse was his absolute favorite, and still to this day is like his absolute favorite. So we did, the first time that he experienced Mickey, we did Chef Mickey's. That way he could see the characters interacting, and he was on our laps whenever they came around. That way we were right there with him with that interaction. So I find that super helpful, making sure that you're kind of positioned so you're almost in between them to give your kiddo a little bit of kind of security with that.
And even that one with, if they come to the table, you can also just be like, hi, Mickey, and just like show that you just want to wave and you don't want to get too close. And they usually can take cues from that, showing like, okay, they don't want me to touch them or hug them or anything.
Absolutely. Because you got to remember, these characters see all sorts of different kinds of people. So they're very aware, very in tune with reading kind of body language. So that's always helpful. The other thing I will say is, if you don't think they're going to do well with a meet and greet, do a stage show, see them in the parades, kind of get a feel with that. Too, so that way you can see them in that respect, and then kind of go from there. Some of the parks have just like, especially at Epcot, you can see like Pooh Bear wandering around, and it's not really like a meet and greet, but it's like you can get close enough to him to kind of get a read. So, kind of looking for those opportunities where the characters are out and visible, but you're not being forced to go up and interact with them. And just knowing your kiddo enough to read their cues and say like, okay, nope, they're not doing well with that. Or I think we could try it. And then having, even if they're little, kind of talking them through the whole process. I'm a big advocate for like talking to my kids like they're little adults. So I will talk them through like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And even if they understand or they don't completely understand, it's still just a habit that I've gotten into.
No, I think it's great to communicate with them. And also, like, and you can even, like we've done with rides, you can show them videos of the characters, and like they can see then the proportion of the characters, and be like, you can kind of feel them out for like what they're like, how they feel about that. And it's like, would you like to meet them? And they like, my daughter, this last time, she was 6 when I took her, and she was like, no, oh no, I lost Jackie. Oh no. Sad day. Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Where'd you go?
I don't know. You disappeared off of my end all of a sudden, and I was like,
I know you disappeared from me. It says like you disconnected. I was like, okay.
I wasn't even touching my phone.
That is so weird. Okay.
That's weird. Okay. Anyway, so we were talking about showing them videos so that way they could see the interactions.
And, like my daughter, when she was 6, she was like, no, I don't want to do it, because she just is a little bit more shy. Like she just gets into it, but there's lots of ways you can still see characters, but not get too close.
Yeah. And Amanda made a good point. Sometimes older siblings or older cousins or those types of things can be helpful too, depending on who you're traveling with.
Yes.
She said that, her little was not so sure until big sibling did it. So that can also be very, very helpful in that respect as well.
That's great. Well, let's see what we've got next on our list. I'm trying to find who wrote. Okay, so this was from Lauren on Discord. She says, what are some experiences and excursions you can have on property that are not park admission related? So she's going for a quick full day trip, but wait, a quick weekend full day trip, but she wanted something on property when they're not staying on property.
Like before they're flying out, I think is what she's looking for.
Yeah.
So a couple things that I would suggest, depending on what it is you're looking for. If you're okay with maybe, still spending a little bit of money, you could always do Disney Springs. There's so much to do at Disney Springs. So that's always a really good option. Also mini golf. There's 2 different mini golf courses that you can get to on property that are fun, kind of not as well traveled areas of property, I feel like. So those are always really fun to do. And then just doing resort tours. If there's resorts that you've always wanted to see, go see them. If you're on property, especially, you can always, you can maneuver your way through Disney transportation to get to where you want to go. But those would be my initial suggestions for different things that you can do.
Yeah, we did this recently. We were staying on property, but we weren't going into the parks. We were like transferring from one resort to another. So we just had this like weird downtime. And we're like, what do we do with our kids? We did swim in our pool before we left. Like in the morning, we swam in the pool. And then in the afternoon, we took the Skyliner like twice because the kids it's just like a ride for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's free.
That and the monorail too, both of them.
And the monorail. And that's what we did next. We did the monorail, and we stopped at the Polynesian and went and got a Dole Whip at the Pineapple and I. So it's like great. You feel like you're on vacation, but you're not. Yeah. It's, you can get a Dole Whip outside the parks there. Yeah. Which is, like you said, resort tours. There's so many great ones. You could go to Animal Kingdom, especially if you had a car, it would be super easy to drive there. If you didn't, you could take Disney transportation, but it takes a little longer. But Animal Kingdom Lodge not only has really great food to eat, but you can watch all the animals. You can go out into the little animal pens and people pens, and you can see all the animals while you're there, which is super fun. And you don't have to be staying there to experience it. So
yeah, and there's tons to do at the resorts. A lot of the resorts offer bike rentals. We've talked a lot about this in our resort episodes, but Surrey bike rentals at some of them, boat rentals, you can rent boats and go out on the waterways. So, lots of different options. If you're staying at a resort that has a boat, or can get to easily to a resort that has a boat, like the boat to Disney Springs from like Port Orleans area is really, really nice. Yeah. So those types of little adventures you can take that just seeing a different side of property, I feel like, is always something that you can do that's really fun when you've got a few hours before you're ready to head home.
Yeah, and you don't have, the only thing you really can't do if you're not that resort guest is swim in the pool. Usually the pools are off limits if you're not a resort guest, but almost everything else on the property you can usually experience even if you're not staying there. So just because you don't have a deluxe budget doesn't mean you can't live like you do once in a while.
And even if you want to go somewhere and grab breakfast at a different resort, that's a really easy way to get to kind of see some different areas. And I would say if you're going to do resort hopping, just plan your transportation accordingly. Like Kate was mentioning, like if you're wanting to do the Skyliner, okay, there are certain resorts that are on the Skyliner. You've got Art of Animation, you've got Pop, you've got Riviera, you've got Caribbean Beach. So you've got to kind of plan that accordingly. If you're doing the monorail, you've got Grand Floridian, you've got the Polynesian, you've got the Contemporary. From that area, you can also kind of get to a couple other places via boat. So just kind of look at your transportation options and see where you can get using, not having to like sit and wait for bus after bus after bus.
Yeah, if you ever need help with that too, please contact us, and because we'd be happy to map out a route for you with what transportation goes where, because we're pretty familiar with it, but we know that it can be confusing if you're not used to it. So,
yeah, so Lauren, I know you're in here. If that didn't answer your question or you want more, message us on Discord and we will gladly help you. If you're looking for something specific, we can help with that for sure.
Okay, so should we move on to the next?
Yeah. This question, Lemuel, listen.
Is he in here somewhere?
He was at some point. He may or may not still be in here. Lemuel had just the most random question, but we're here for it and we love it and we love his support. So he is asking, and I'm going to leave this completely up to Kate, who are the Dapper Dans? And where did they come from?
That's such a great question. I love that. I could do an entire This Story episode on just the Dapper Dans. So I'm going to truncate my answer because we would be here all night. There is a history of course, entertainment in the parks that has happened since Disneyland opened. One of the most famous groups that they had used to be called the Firehouse 5+2, which was actually a group of animators. I have a great picture of them because they had a whole album. It was a group of animators that were musical, that were worked for Disney. And they actually became so popular, they started to do events outside of Disney. And Walt said, you may do the events, but you're not allowed to quit. So they weren't allowed to go full time into music. So there has been this history of music in the parks, but the Dapper Dans, sorry, I'm trying to pull up pictures as well. But in 1957, there's a Disneyland entertainment director named Tommy Walker. He arranged for a barbershop quartet to perform on Main Street. They didn't really become more of this kind of like act that we know them to be today, with kind of combines tap dancing and vaudeville and all the fun harmonies and things. That didn't happen until 1959. That's when they decided to kind of like incorporate them, if you will. And the bass singer T.J. Marker, who was the leader of the quartet, actually came up with the name for them. That was the Dapper Dans, which is, of course, after the turn of century phrase for stylish, dapper. And then I love this quote from Sonny Anderson, who was in charge of booking the entertainment for Disneyland. He said, "We had a quartet, but all they did was stand up there and sing. I wanted some entertainers. We have plenty of entertainment for the kids, but we need a quartet that could entertain their parents, the older people." And it really is like, I think everybody loves the Dapper Dans, but my kids are like, Mom, can we go? Mom, can we go? Yeah. I'm like, no, let's stay and listen. I love also they have these, like, their hats used to look really different back in the day.
Those are like bucket bowler hats. Like they're really deep.
They're round.
Yeah. Interesting.
So their hats were really different when they started. And then they also, I just like one or two more things because it's so much fun. It's fun for me. Hopefully it's fun for you. Their home base was considered to be the Harmony Barbershop, but they did perform other places on Main Street, and they still do. That's, of course, where vacationers can get a haircut. There's a caricature inside it if you go. I think it's in Disney World too, because they started performing when Disney World opened. They were there since 1971. So there's a caricature of the original Dapper Dans inside that barbershop. So if you ever get a chance to peek in, you can see that. And then I wanted to just mention the Deegan chimes. I don't know if you've ever seen them play the Deegan chimes. I have a little video of
videos, but I've never actually seen them play.
It's really special when they do it, because they have 8 shaker chimes that were made in 1901, and they were made in Chicago. They're called organ chimes, and they're made by the J.C. Deegan Company. So 1901 is also
cool.
1901 is when Walt Disney was born. So it's a long time ago, and they're that old.
As a music person, those chimes are just fascinating to me. I just want to get my hands on them and see how they work and get a closer look at them. They're definitely really cool.
I had a video of them, of course, my YouTube now it's going to give me an ad. Hold on.
Of course it is.
So the Dapper Dans have had some famous people sing in them throughout the years, which I didn't actually write all my notes on, but let me see if I can get this for you guys. These are super neat. And so on and so forth. But
very cool.
They're really
so
neat.
Fun.
If you ever see them with them, make sure you stop and see them because they're such a special part of that. But so there's all kinds of other things about them, including the special bike that they ride that was made specifically for the Dapper Dans and all the things. But that's where the Dapper Dans started, I would say. So. Yeah.
Love it. Perfect. I've got a question in my chat here that I want to touch on before we kind of continue with our other questions we've got. So Christina is asking about what do you guys think of split stays? Looks like she's considering doing a split stay between Wilderness Lodge and then the Swan. She's saying we did it once with Saratoga and Grand Floridian, and now with 2 kids. She's wondering, is she crazy to move?
That's a good question. I've done a lot of split stays. I would, if you don't mind me going first here.
Absolutely, yep.
I usually, when I'm with my kids, I tend to not like split stays because it's a lot to pack up your kids and move them. Now, if you have older kids that can pack themselves, it's maybe not a crazy thought, especially if you stay a couple days in each. Let's say you stay 3 days in one and 4 days in the other, or vice versa. You know, that's a significant number of days where you feel like you've stayed enough that you're not just packing up and moving again. If it's only like 2 days in one and one in the other, then it feels like you're just moving your whole trip. And you don't have, usually if Disney is transporting your bags, you don't have access to them until after 5 p.m.-ish, because that takes them a while to transfer your bags to your new hotel. So taking that into account too. And then if you buy any food and whatnot, you have to, box that up. They will keep it cold for you usually, but it can be a lot with kids. Now with adults, I think it's a little bit easier. It depends on the style of how you vacation. If you I really want to experience a lot of different resorts, I think, go for it. That's the way you want to vacation. I have a couple of friends that just refuse to do split stays because once they're there, they want to unpack, they want to put their stuff in the drawers, and they want to just relax. And I get that. So I would say it really depends on the age of your kids and how you like to vacation. I don't think it's crazy. I think it's just you have to make a decision if that is worth the hassle for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Allie's asking a good question. She was wondering about luggage. So yes, Disney will move your luggage for you if you're going from Disney resort to Disney resort. If it happens that you're doing a split stay from off property to on property, obviously that would be something you would have to figure out. And then she asked, do you typically do a park day on the day that you move? And I really think that's up to what your schedule is and how many days you're there and what parks you're doing and all that type of thing. But I would definitely, on that day that you move, you're going to want to leave yourself a little bit of time to gather your stuff and get all situated in your new place.
Yeah, it's harder to get out in the morning because you have to pack up everything and all your suitcases, and often you have to call Bell Services maybe to come get your bags if you don't take them to Bell Services. So, you might be waiting on them if they're busy, especially if it's anywhere near checkout time. So it takes a little bit more time. You also, got to tip your Bell Service people because they work really hard. So it costs you a little bit more money too. So keep that in mind. And usually what I'll do is that when I get to my other hotel, I'll call Bell Services if it's, later in the evening, and I'll say could you bring my bags up? And they will. So, or you can stop by the desk on your way in and say I'm on my way up to my room. Can you please bring my bags? And they will. So it's pretty easy to get your bags transferred, but you won't have access to them. So don't leave anything in it that you need, like medication, anything important, because they literally will not know where your bag is for a couple hours. And I needed something once and it was really bad. So don't ever, make sure you have a day bag that you can pack all of your important things that you need to have access to, because you just won't have it while they're transferring it.
Yeah. And also take into consideration what time check-in is at your hotel you're going to, because even with Disney doing that transferring for you, you're still not going to have immediate access to your new room. No. So you're going to want to make sure you keep that in mind. Now, Kate, do you get a separate, you get a text message when your initial resort is ready? Do you get then that same notification for your second resort?
Yeah, you do. The thing is, though, they treat it like a completely separate vacation. So the downside to that is if you're making dining reservations, you have now 2 ADR advanced dining reservation dates that you have to, for us, wake up at 3 a.m. to book. So keep that in mind that unless you have a great travel agent that's doing that for you, you're going to have to treat yourself in your head like it's almost 2 separate vacations, which makes it a little bit more complicated. So they will text you saying when your room is ready, but it'll be like, welcome, you're beginning your vacation. They'll treat it like it's brand new. And you're like, no, I've been here.
I'm not, but okay, thank you.
So I do like split stays, but there's some tricky things about it that you just have to be aware of to know to do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. I had another question in my chat that got a little lost, and I don't want it to get any more lost before the end of the episode. Kathy was asking about free parking or parking at the parks. So the way that parking works on a property, a couple different situations. If you have a rental car or you drive, and you have a car that you are parking at your resort if you're on property. You will pay a parking fee at your resort. From there, then you can park for free at the parks because you've already paid that parking fee at your resort. Parking at the parks is then free. But that's, again, if you're on property with a car on property at your resort. If you're driving to the parks from off property, you will pay to park at the parks. I think parking is $25 a day and $50 for preferred. So 25 for standard, 50 for preferred, for that. So that's if you're off property or driving from somewhere else that is not on property, that is the fee that you would have to pay.
I mean, it's good to know because if you're trying to save money by staying off property, knowing that you have to pay $25 for parking, like, is it still worth it? You know, you have to, that's another good thing to weigh when you're making that decision.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, things like if you decide you want to Uber or Lyft could come into play. You know, maybe even if you have a car, maybe it is cheaper for, you know, especially if you've got a bigger party, if you've got more than one vehicle, whatever that may be, it still may be cheaper for you to like Uber. So you pay the Uber fee, but maybe don't have to pay that parking fee depending. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And if you're a DVC member or you rent a DVC room, you don't have to pay for parking. It's included. So that's another bonus too for DVC. So that's Disney Vacation Club, for those of you who don't know what that is. And we did talk about renting DVC was that our second deluxe episode? Which one did we do? It must have been deluxe. I think it was the first deluxe episode that we did. Right. We talked about renting DVC, how to do it, how it saves you money, all those details. So that's in our podcast and at YouTube if you want to go back and take a listen to that.
Yeah. And again, as we kind of go through this, if we're referencing previous episodes and you can't find what we're talking about, send us a message so that way we can help you find what you're looking for. Oh, Allie says it is in the first deluxe episode. She just watched it today. Thank you, Allie.
Oh, thank you. Yay.
Perfect.
Christina says the resort parking fees started in 2018. Yeah, and she hates it. Yeah, I agree. I think we all do.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
And you're going to pay, and I will say just briefly that the resort fee, not the parks fee, the resort fee does change based on the level of resort that you're staying at. So it starts at, I believe, $20 a day for the value resorts, and it goes up from there for moderate and then up again for deluxe. So again, different fees, but it just depends on your situation on what you may or may not be paying for.
Yep, absolutely.
So speaking of hotels and resorts, another question from our wonderful friend Rhonda. Let's jump back into these over here. Hotel recommendations for Disneyland. Looking for a good balance between budget and proximity.
Yeah, we did talk a lot about Disneyland hotels in all of those. We talked in each episode of talking about levels of hotels. We mentioned Disneyland hotels in them. So if you ever want to give them a listen and hear a little bit more about that, they're in there. But like I said, I would recommend anything that is on Harbor Boulevard, the vertical road that runs next to Disneyland, and not too far away from like the center point of Disneyland. In between, if you look on a map, you'll see Disneyland and you'll see California Adventure. In between is the plaza entrance to where you get in. So I recommend closer to that plaza entrance is where I would recommend you staying. And those hotels are moderately priced because they're not Disney hotels. So we're thinking like almost value pricing at Disney World is what you would pay for some of those hotels there. And it's like less than a 5-minute walk sometimes. It's very, very, very close. So I usually recommend the Park View Inn is one of my absolute favorite places to stay. It usually is around maybe $220 per night when it gets spendy, so it's affordable. And the Best Western Park Place Inn is right next door to it. That's also a solid place to stay. I've stayed both of those places. And then there's a couple other hotels there too. I know some people like the Candy Cane Inn. A lot of people like the Howard Johnson. If you have little kids, that one's a great one to stay at the Hojo. It's got a whole water park attached to it, but it is a little bit farther of a walk. I would say that's closer to a 10-minute walk. So you have to be prepared for that as well. But anywhere on Harbor Boulevard. I don't recommend Catella. I just stayed there on Catella. Oh, no. And I've done it before with Elliot way in the past. And I stayed this time, and it was fine, but you have to go in like the back entrance and then walk through like Disney Drive, and then you have to walk through like the hotel area and then across to downtown Disney and through downtown Disney, and it just takes a lot of time. It's just like a 20-minute walk. It's a solid 20-minute walk.
Yeah.
It's
so
significant.
then be walking the rest of the day and then having to walk that on your way back at the end of the night. That's a long walk.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind walking, it's not a horrible place to stay, but I don't, right, that's not my recommendation. I would definitely stay on Harbor Boulevard, and I think that's where I'm going to aim from here on out, because I'm like, this was too much. so yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's my recommendations, Rhonda. Thanks for asking
Rhonda
that
says,
question.
awesome, looking to venture across the continent for our first Disneyland adventure soon. How exciting, Rhonda. Well, if you need more info, you know where to find Kate. She is the good one to ask all of your Disneyland questions, because I have never been. So I can help you research, but I don't have personal experience. So definitely feel free to reach out to us, Rhonda, if you've got more questions about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited for you, Rhonda. That's exciting.
Yeah. Well, and Rhonda was on a roll with the questions that she had for us. So let's jump into her next question. And this one is going to get a little lengthy. So let's talk about the DAS Pass, DAS, or the Disability Access Pass that Disney offers. She was asking, how do you qualify? How do you get your pass? How many people can ride? All of those types of questions. So I did some looking on the Disney website. I have never used the pass personally. I have some friends who have, and I know some people who have used it. So I definitely wanted to hop onto Disney and see what they had to say about it. So the way that basically this pass works is it is intended for guests who have a difficult time tolerating extended waits in a conventional queue. So if you feel like that applies to you or someone in your party, then you may qualify. To find out if you qualify, a couple different ways that you can do that. You can pre-register virtually with a cast member using a live video chat. So that is something that you can access through the Disney website. So I just literally, because I wanted to see how easy it was to find the information, I went to the Disney World website and I just typed in the top disability access, and that was the first thing that popped up. So super easy to find on the website if that's what you're looking for. So from there, you can schedule a time that you will talk via a video call with the cast member. That being said, the person who is the one that you're signing up for. So like if you're a parent that is accessing it for your child, or someone accessing it for maybe a grandparent or whatever it may be, they must be present with you on that video call. So keep that in mind if you're trying to help someone that maybe you don't live with gain access to that. You want to make sure that you are setting up a time that you can do it together, because the cast member is going to need that on that video call. That video call can happen as soon as 30 days in advance and no less than 2 days. So if you get to where you're less than 2 days for your trip, that video call is no longer an option for you. That being said, all of your park days must be within that 30-day window. So keep that in mind, because you're not going to want to do it 30 days out from your first park day, because then you may have issues with how long the pass is good for. So
That's
keep that
interesting.
in.
Do you have to renew it then? I've never.
Yeah, so it only, let me find it if I wrote it down, or I may not have written it down. Yeah, it's like a monthly renewal system. Now I think they have different lengths of eligibility for like DVC and annual pass holders and things like that. But according to the website, it's a 60-day, like the pass is good for 60 days. But for whatever reason, they say that your park days must be within that 30-day window when you initially sign up for it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's something that you'll want to keep in mind, to like when you actually go to request that video chat, you want to make sure that you're doing it within the proper window, so that way you're good with that. During that chat, you will be able to talk to a cast member to get that all situated, and they will determine whether or not you qualify on that video. Now, a couple things to note is that if you are a guest that maybe just has mobility concerns, someone needing to use a wheelchair or a scooter, you most likely, depending on the situation again, and this is all just generalized information, you most likely will not qualify for the DAS pass, because what they will do is they will give you kind of a different means of using that scooter or wheelchair in the queue lines.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
A lot of the time you'll go through the exit or some other mode of waiting. If you can't take it into the actual queue line, there's other places that you can talk to a cast member at the beginning.
Yes.
They'll point you to where you need to go.
Yeah, so according to the Disney website, what it says is guests utilizing a wheelchair or scooter will either wait in the standard queue or receive a return time at the attraction that is comparable to the current standby. So it still works a little bit like DAS, but you're not registered with an official DAS pass. So that's for if it's just a mobility concern. Now, if there are varying concerns as to why you may not be able to wait in that standard queue. Those are going to be the ones that you're going to want to go through that video call with to get that DAS pass. The other benefit and the perk of doing it ahead and doing it kind of right on as soon as you can is during that call, you will be able to work with the cast member to book up to 2 1-hour return windows for experiences using what they're calling the new DAS Advanced planning option. So that is the big benefit for doing it ahead of time, because you will be able to do that, book those ahead of time. So basically it's like booking those, return times, booking a lightning lane, so to speak, ahead of time.
Like we used to do with fast passes back in the day.
Exactly. So you will have the ability to book up to 2 advanced selections for each day of your visit. Now, those are subject to availability, so it's not like there's an open-ended availability for especially those big ticket rides. So that's why a lot of people will make sure that they've got that video call set up on the earliest day possible to get the best options to be able to have the big rides that you're looking to do, or maybe the most popular rides that you're looking to do. So that's something to keep in mind as well as you're going and looking through that. The other thing is, aside from your advanced ones, you can only have 1 return time at a time. So if you've got a ride that's got a really long wait, like let's say you're using DAS for Rise of the Resistance and it's got a 200-minute wait, you're then stuck for 200 minutes not being able to use your DAS pass. So plan accordingly with those wait times, because what will happen with your standard DAS return times is you will, and it's all booked on the app now, so you will be able to go on and book for a time that is the equivalent wait time of what the current standby is. So if you're going on, let's say, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Hollywood Studios, let's say it's a 60-minute wait right now, if you log on to your app, it's going to give you a return time 60 minutes from now, because that's what that wait time is. So that's also something to consider as you're planning accordingly. I see a lot of people that will kind of piggyback Genie Plus on that if they choose to kind of help fill in those gaps in between and kind of alternate in between. So that's something that you can also consider. And keep in mind that when you enter for your return time, you're going to go through that lightning lane. So whatever the lightning lane looks like, whatever that wait may be, Disney claims it's supposed to be a maximum of approximately 15 to 20 minutes in the lightning lane. It has happened when lightning lanes get backed up. If a ride goes down, whatever may happen, lightning lane lines can get lengthy. So that's definitely something, if you're really concerned about that wait in the lightning lane, talk to the cast member when you get there and see how long they think it is. Lightning lane and DAS does get priority, but it's definitely still something you want to look into as well with that. The other thing I want to mention is if you miss your pre-registration window, let's say, or you plan a last minute trip and you don't have time to get that, you can do your DAS and get it all situated in person in parks. Just go see the guest services people. But again, keep in mind that whoever it is that is the one that needs it needs to be present at that conversation.
Yeah. And Christina mentioned a very good point is that if you don't need DAS, if someone really honestly doesn't need DAS, don't use it, because we won't get into a whole discussion about how there's people that abuse it. There are people out there that abuse it, but we're not here to discuss that necessarily, but we will say that it really is for the people who really really can't wait in line. And otherwise there's GD Plus, there's lightning lanes, there's other things we can do. Nobody really wants to pay for them, honestly, but
Right.
there is
Right.
another option available to skip the line, so to speak.
Yeah,
So,
and it is what it is.
it's a good
We
point.
just like anything, we want to make sure that it's available to the people who truly need it, and that other people are not,
Yeah.
abusing that. Kathy made a good point. She said that she was recently helped her mother-in-law get it signed up, and she suggested using a computer, not a cell phone device, when you go to do that registration call.
Oh yeah, that's a good tip.
So that may be
KDO
helpful.
says KDO has a good tip. She says if you're in a party with a DAS user, they have to be there for the ride too, even if you're linked. So yes, like when I've been with a friend of mine who had DAS and they were so kind to let me go with them, she would go first and like scan her magic band, and then I could go in behind her. So
Yes.
you do have to have your DAS person with you when you go to in that lightning lane.
Yes, that being said, I did read that anyone that is linked under that DAS pass, so again, that's something that you'll have to handle with your cast member that you either speak to ahead of time or at the parks to make sure that everybody is included under everyone who needs to be is included under there for you. Now, I didn't find one of the questions that Rhonda had asked was about how many people could ride. So I know there are some people in here who have used DAS. I couldn't find a specific number. I believe it's 6, but I could be wrong.
It's supposed to be 6, but sometimes if you ask cast members really nicely and you say, I'm traveling with my party of 8, could they be added? Sometimes they can help you with that. I've done it up to 10 one time when we had a whole bunch of us for a single ride. Like sometimes they're just really nice about it. But yeah, I believe it is 6 is the max that you usually can have on your DAS.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from comments. Becca and Kathy both said that 6 people. But that being said, anyone that is included under that reservation can book the time via the My Disney Experience app. So anyone that is already included on that can book the time. But when you actually go, like Kate was saying, to check in for your return time, the person that has the DAS pass would have to scan first.
Yeah, and if you need to, swap out people that are on your DAS that are from maybe this person's going on this ride, but this person's not because your party's really big or whatever. If you find the guest experience, their umbrellas in Disney World or just areas in Disneyland, they will always help you out with that. They can help you add and subtract and move, and they're really super nice about all of it. So that is a great place to go if you're confused, you don't know what to do, if you need help. They're always willing to help you there. So
yeah, and that being said, they again, if you're adding someone in person, they need to be with you when you go to that guest experience, umbrella, tent, whatever you want to call it. So keep that in mind. And Nicole made a good point. She said the 6 includes the person that is holding the DAS pass. So 5 additional people plus the person who actually has the DAS pass.
Yep.
So I think hopefully that answered Rhonda's question. I know it was a lot of information, but it's a lot.
I feel like we all learned something.
It's a lot of details that you kind of need to make sure that you're aware of when you go through to book. So that's definitely something that, and I feel like it's something that a lot of people have questions about because it can seem very confusing and it's got a lot of additional kind of stipulations and rules and regulations to follow on top of all the other rules and regulations for booking things at Disney that we already, kind of have to know about. But that pre-registration, I think, is hugely helpful and definitely the way to go if you're looking at possibly using a DAS pass going forward.
No, and I believe you don't have to go through like the video call necessarily, like to renew it, like as you renew it.
I believe you're right. As long as you haven't passed your renewal,
like expiration date.
Yeah. You I believe can just do a phone call. So, Becca, I don't know if you have experience with renewing, if it's just a phone call or what you've had to do, but if you've got any input, we would be grateful.
KDO says, don't let it be intimidating. If there's a true need, it's easy, and they're very kind. And that is so true. Like all the cast members there, that can help you with that, they don't mind. That's what they do. And they're just like, they want to make sure that the parks are as easy for you as possible. That's their goal. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That was great info, Jacque. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's hop down here. We've got a few more questions that we were asked ahead of time. And then I think I'm even seeing a couple more questions in my chat. So we will definitely hit up those. Okay, Becca's saying we renewed right after the 60 days. Okay. So Becca, was that hard? Did you have to go through the whole process again, or were they able to just renew it for you without going through the video call again? Sorry, with the delay, we gotta wait a few seconds here for Becca to give us the good info. Here.
Take some Christmas songs while we wait.
Yes. Which, speaking of, on our Christmas episode coming up, we're going to be doing just that, doing some fun Christmas activities and some fun Disney themed things. So definitely tune in for that. That'll be I think it's the 22nd, if I'm adding correctly what date that will be. That'll be that one. Yes, our Christmas party will be right before Christmas break. Oh, okay. Christmas Becca said we did it on site. They asked 2 questions and it was quicker. So that's definitely an option.
Easy peasy.
So along related to that, sorry, I just got a question from Ashley. She said, we're taking my parents this time and they both have scooters. Are most queues scooter friendly? I never really paid attention. They won't be riding much rides. So the majority of them are. And they will tell you.
Depends if you're Disneyland or Disney World. Disneyland has a lot less scooter friendly.
Okay. Yeah. So and a lot of the times, like the signage at the beginning of the queues will tell you if you are able to stay in your scooter, or if you're going to have to transfer. Or if you don't see it, there's always a cast member right at the beginning of the queue. So you can always just go up and ask them, kind of what
I think it's in the app too.
I believe you're correct.
Attraction, the app.
Yes, you should be able to look it up in there. Okay, Brittany is saying hardly any are actually scooter friendly. They typically will make you transfer to a push wheelchair. So yeah, that's something to look into as well. And yeah, you can look it up on the website. You can look it up in the app. If you go to the individual attractions on the My Disney Experience app, you will be able to look at if you scroll down to the bottom underneath like the height restrictions and all that kind of stuff, it'll show you if they're accessible or not. And Brittany says that's typically in Magic Kingdom, not all of the parks. So yeah, that's definitely something to look into, depending on, I know you said they don't like a ton of rides and maybe aren't going to ride as many, but definitely look at the rides that they want to do and take a look at that on the app. And if you can't find it, Ashley, shoot us a message on Instagram or on Discord if you're on there with us, and we will help you out with that.
Yeah, and when all else fails, ask the cast member that's standing at the opening of like the entrance to the attraction, because they usually have all the answers to that, and they're super helpful. So it's a great place to ask. Did you have any more questions from the chat you want to answer before we
no, let's go ahead and finish these last couple, and then I'll pop back over to my chat because I can see there are some, but we're good.
Okay. All right. So our next question is, do pack and plays fit in rooms?
Yeah. So this is from our friend Allie Graffs.
Allie. Allie. Sorry.
Yeah, so I have So I have personal experience with fitting a pack and play in the rooms, the renovated, remodeled rooms at Pop Century. So that would also go for any of the other value resorts because they are all identical setups if you're doing a standard room. So I have fit a pack and play perfectly in between the edge of the dresser, which is kind of the TV stand dresser underneath, and where the kitchenette little shelves and refrigerator are. A pack and play will fit perfectly right in between there.
Great spot. A great spot for that.
Yeah. So we shifted, that's typically where the table and chairs are. So we shifted that over towards the window, and towards that air conditioning kind of area at the entry area, and we're able to fit the pack and play there. So that would be my biggest suggestion for you, Allie, if you're looking at that. I know you were looking at a bunch of different resorts for your trip you're planning. I saw on Discord. So that would be my suggestion. If you're looking value, I know that will fit there.
I know moderates. I have done them in moderates. Deluxe, you won't, don't worry, those rooms are huge. Moderates
Yeah.
are slightly bigger than value. So if they fit in value, they probably will fit somewhere in a moderate. The room setups are slightly different depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But they're all fairly similar. But there's usually enough room in the entryway area because there's usually like a dining table there that you can kind of either, shift the table or put it in that area. Or there's other places you could probably put it in the room that's in a corner. You might have to shimmy past it on your way to the restroom, but there's a couple other places in the room you can put it.
Because I'm thinking about like our standard room when we stayed at Port Orleans French Quarter was the same setup, but just a little bit more space, kind of in between beds and stuff.
Bigger.
So that would be the same thing. I would do the exact same thing, although they're like I said, their setup is a little bit different, but kind of almost replacing the table space with that pack and play and shifting the table over. I think pretty much anywhere, Allie, should get you enough space for that pack and play. The other thing to know is if you are traveling with a little kiddo and you're looking at cribs versus pack and plays, not all of the resorts have cribs. Basically just deluxe will more than likely have a crib, but it's never a guarantee that they'll have a crib versus a pack and play. So just keep that in mind, Allie, and anyone else who is going to be traveling with a little. You're going to want to look into what type of accommodations they have. And if it's not what you need, there are outside rental companies you can Google to see and look at reviews and all that kind of stuff to see if you can rent one and have it dropped off at your resort for you.
Yeah, and sometimes the ones that come from rental companies are actually cleaner than the ones at resorts. That's just been my experience.
Yes.
They because they have a business that they know they're going to lose if they deliver a dirty pack and play, versus the resorts. They're like, well, you have the convenience of having this is what we got, and so I've always taken. If I use the ones in the hotel, I usually make sure I have those antibacterial like wipes, and I just wipe it down like crazy because some of them are gross.
I mean, little kids are gross, so
I know. It's like
they put their mouth on everything. Their hands are in their mouth. And their hands are on everything.
I mean, I know my kid's going to do that too. So usually give it a wipe down too at the end. Just to help the next person. help out another mom.
Exactly.
So the pack and plays, and I would say in Disneyland too, like most of those motels, some of those rooms are smaller in those motels, but like the Parkview Inn that I mentioned, like we've put pack and plays in there, and you just have to kind of walk around it a little bit, but you still can get around. So they fit.
Yep, absolutely. So kind of in tandem with that, Allie is also asking about tricks for sleeping with multiple kids in a standard room.
I love this question.
Yeah, it is a really great question. So we only recently just started doing this. Previously, from our last couple of trips, we always did suites and stayed, gave the kids the master, so that way they had their space and we could be out not having to go to sleep at the same time as them. And it really just, a lot of it depends on your kiddo and how they sleep at home. We do our best to replicate their sleeping environment at home at the hotel. And we also count on the fact for a little bit that they're just exhausted by the end of the night. So they typically will sleep better than we anticipate. But things like sound machines, if they do white noise or anything like that, that can be a huge help. So definitely planning accordingly for that, and not planning to use like your phone or anything like that, making sure you have something separate that you can plug into, even if it's just a cheap white noise machine that you buy, and just have it in your vacation stuff. That's definitely something to look into. That would be my
we use an
advice.
extra iPad that we have, but we put it on like do not disturb mode, and we plug it in so it won't die in the middle of the night. And that usually is great because then we can use it on the plane and stuff for keeping the kids entertained. But it just using a white noise app, it's free, so that's usually really helpful. I have so much. My kids were terrible sleepers, terrible. So traveling to Disney with them and getting them to sleep, and sometimes when we're in the same room with them, which is like not ideal, but often that's what you do because you can't afford 2 rooms or suites. So something we did when my kids were super little is like they were in that baby stage. I'm trying to remember how old they were, where if they saw you, then they would like freak out and they wouldn't sleep. I'm not alone in this, right? Like there's other.
Nope.
And so we had to figure out a way.
On his first trip with the pack and play, we had to all lay down and pretend we were sleeping for about 20, 30 minutes when we laid him down. And then we could get up and do what we needed to do.
This is real life. Okay. So this is what we did was I got those, for a while we traveled this way. I had those command hooks that are like no damage, remove command hooks. And I put them up, not close to the pack and play because we don't want to pull in them down, but in a place where I could put one on like 2 walls, and I brought rope that I strung behind it. Like, and I asked for extra sheets from the people at the hotel. I asked for extra just flat sheets, and I hung them over the rope. So there was a visual blocker between me and the pack and play. And after that, we never had a problem again because it was like almost like another room. We put the white noise on so they couldn't hear us, and they just went to sleep. So little mom hack.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And for older kids, multiple kids sleeping in the same room. And this is a struggle too if you have like maybe 2 like kids that are different genders that can't sleep in the same bed and things like that. It gets kind of tricky because you're like, okay, well, what do we do here? Sometimes you can get air mattresses that are like yay big that you can put in your suitcase. We use those so much when we travel. My son hates it. He's like, why do I have to sit on the floor, sleep on the floor? I'm like, because you have 2 sisters. So
and you're the odd man out.
Like, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
sometimes
kid.
we try to get him a room with a bed, but we can't always do it. So, so that air mattress really makes him at least comfortable to not be like on the floor and a little bit more comfortable. And it gives us the flexibility. Like we have put our kids in closets, which sounds really strange. But if we're staying in a room that has like a decent sized closet where they can actually lay and stretch out, they love it. They're like, bye mom. And they like close the door.
Close the door. Their own little personal like cave and like clubhouse they get to hang out and sleep in.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many ways. You just kind of like get creative about like your sleeping situation because you don't just because like there's 2 beds doesn't mean that there's not little nooks and crannies and other places that you can kind of just like have people sleep. So and get creative. That's
yeah. Allie, you're not wrong. Allie said we were totally considering a bathroom or closet. You're not wrong. But make sure you still give yourself access to a bathroom. If you're going to be using the bathroom areas for sleeping.
Yeah. If you have a young, infant or toddler that is going to pay attention to you, I'd say that curtain trick is one of my favorites because you can partition the room in such a way where it's almost like they have their own space. You just have to be kind of quiet, just put on some white noise and make the lights super low. And, you can still move around because, gosh, how many times have I stayed in a hotel and I'm like, you're like a ninja, like having to move around in the dark.
Tiptoeing, feeling your way because you don't want to shine your super bright flashlight in everyone's faces. Yeah, it's a lot. When we go now, because we drive, we have the flexibility of we take extra. My kids have like those big, like I don't know if you see them. They're like big Sleepy Time stuffies, and they're like huge. And my kids each my kids are so spoiled when it comes to those. They each have like three different ones, and so they always bring those with them. So we will line the middle of the bed with those so that way they're not bothering each other because my daughter is like an acrobat at night. And I said, we will take as many, whatever blankets or stuffies that they need so that way they feel good. And it's just been these last 2 trips that we've finally started staying in like standard rooms. And it has, knock on wood, so far done better. They've done better than I anticipated, but a lot of it again is just older, that exhaustion. Yeah. And my kids are 4 and 6 now. So a little bit different than the pack and play age.
Yeah. And it makes a big difference. And for those of you who can't drive to Disney and take your whole house with you like Jackie, you can use some extra pillows for that barrier because that's what my girls do. They get their little blankets set up and then they put their pillows, like they line them down the bed and like nobody shall pass this
give
line.
Yourself your own little space and ask for, like Kate was saying, ask for extra sheets and pillows and do whatever you need to do. I would not recommend like planning for anyone to sleep on the floor, especially in those Disney resorts. One, it's just not very. Well, it's probably cleaner than it has been because a lot of them are renovated. But like,
floor.
Yeah. But
if
it's
not
also
an air
like
mattress, at least
those floors
blankets,
are
pillows,
very hard. They are not carpeted and plushy at all. So keep that in mind as well when you're looking at those types of things. So hopefully, Allie, that gave you some ideas, and hopefully
it's a fun question.
Yeah.
It brought back all those memories of traveling with my super tiny babies and how frustrating it was at times, because it is. If they don't sleep well, it always, just remember, it takes 3 nights for kids to adjust to a new sleeping location. So just keep that in mind. Unless they're super, super exhausted, in which case they might just pass right out. But usually it takes about 3 nights for them to get over the newness of their environment to go to sleep. So the first 3 days of your trip might be a little tougher for sleep, maybe. So just keep it in mind.
Yep, absolutely. And then Allie's got one more question for us. How do we make time for dates, kind of time away during your trip, and what that kind of looks like? So that's a tricky one depending on your circumstances and your situation. Obviously if you're traveling with other adults, that can help. That's the best option in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
If you can kind of plan accordingly and plan ahead and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, and have that conversation. If that's not an option, there are several different services that do offer, babysitting or nannying or whatever you want to call it, that you can hire people to do that. So that would be another option that you would have. But those are pretty much your 2 basic options, either having someone traveling with you, or bringing, someone along with you to be able to help facilitate that, or hiring someone.
Yeah, and something we do when we don't have family traveling with us, especially, this might be because we have a little bit older kids, but often if you find a place where they can play for a little bit, you can sit down and keep an eye on them, but they're safe. Like, I'm thinking like the boneyard. Like my husband and I will just sit down and we just sit next to each other and we just have a nice chat, and just relax next to each other. And it's not a full-blown date. We're not going out for dinner. We're not doing all the things we'd love to do, but sometimes just taking that time when we get to just talk to each other, and we're still keeping our eyes on our kids, but it's in an enclosed area where, like if there's a playground in Epcot, there's a couple of those places where sure, your kids are probably going to run over to you every once in a while, but you can still just kind of sit on a bench together and just take that time. Sometimes that is enough. I know my husband and I too, because our kids are older, they sit with each other a lot of the times. And so once in a while we get to sit with each other on a trip. Not often, because we have family of 5. So it's always awkward when you go on rides. But once in a while we get to sit next to each other and we just kind of take that extra time to hold hands and just be together. And I think that sometimes that's as good as you're going to get, unless you plan a solo trip where somebody watches the kids at home and you just get to go with just the 2 of you, which is what I recommend the most.
Listen to Kate.
Probably can't do that so your kids are older, but yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah. So that's a tricky one, but those are probably your best options. I know someone in the Discord not that long ago was talking, Allie, about a service that they were using. I think it was Kelly and Amanda were talking about it. So scroll back up in the Gen chat on Discord. Sorry if I'm talking gibberish to those of you who aren't in Discord, but I know that Allie is. The Discord is our chat server that we are a part of, run by our friend Kirk at Walrus Carp. So Allie, I know there were people talking in there about some different services. So maybe also if you're looking that route, pop in there and ask questions in there and see who has some services that they've used before.
Yeah, and those of you who aren't on the Discord, there's a link for it in both of our bios. It just says Pocket Fam Discord. So you can join us there to chat even when we're not live and ask us questions and be aware of future episodes and things like that. So we'd love to have you be part.
Yeah, I've got some other really good
Once
questions.
Upon a Nanny. That's what Christina says. It's called Once Upon a Nanny.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate that. So, Allie, there's one name that you can look into if that's the route you want to take. I know some people are iffy about those types of services, so maybe reaching out to people in Pocket Fam who have maybe used them before and can give you kind of their personal, experience with that, I feel like is always helpful. Okay, Tiffany is asking, is Port Orleans a good place to stay? Yes, I would say yes. We stayed at the French Quarter side back in April, and we absolutely loved it. Our kids loved the pool area. We loved the food options. Overall, just really, really great feel to it. We really loved that resort.
Yeah, I would say I've stayed there multiple times, both with kids and without. I would say it's great that it has a lot of pools. It's a beautifully themed resort. It's gorgeous in the evenings to take strolls along the Sasagula River. It's and they have beignets and live music. But the downsides of it is the buses. There's a lot. The bus situation's really tough there. So if you're not driving, just be aware that you might be waiting on buses a lot because they have 4 or 5 stops. So I think 4, maybe 5. Plus,
I don't remember.
they have French Quarter, so I think it's 5 altogether with French Quarter. They
Yeah,
have a lot of
between
stops.
Riverside and French Quarter, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's also a very large resort, so you might do a lot of walking from the main part, depending on where you're situated, from the main lobby area where the pool is and the big pool is and the food and whatnot. It might be a bit of a walk too. So, but it's a lovely walk. It's a beautiful walk.
Yes, it is.
French Quarter
Yes, it
has
is.
a lot less walking. It's a much smaller resort, but you might still end up walking over to, Riverside to get the things you need. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tiffany asked, well, it was kind of a statement, but I just wanted to touch briefly on it. She said, we like Disneyland, but we have a kiddo in a wheelchair, and we were told that Disney World is better. Kate, do you know much about, I know you've done both, but I don't know that whether or not you have any insight on that.
Well, the only thing I can think of why that would be, I have not, full disclaimer, I've never traveled with somebody with a wheelchair there, but I think it would just be because it's, everything's a little bit more narrower because it was made a long time ago. California Adventure, not as big of an issue because that was made in the 90s, 2000s. Gosh, I don't know. I have to look it up. It was made a lot later versus 1955, which was when Disneyland was built. So you think of like Fantasyland, even though it was remodeled in the 80s, still has a lot less, it looks like it has a lot less accessibility, but actually they are very accommodating in terms of getting people through the exits and things like that. So I have seen many, many people that use wheelchairs and scooters at Disneyland, and they get around and they do just fine. So I would not let that keep you from going to Disneyland, because Disney has made a lot of ways of accommodating a lot of people with all kinds of situations. Now, that being said, Disney World, because there's just a lot more space, I think that there's a lot, mobility is a little bit easier in that. And especially when it gets very crowded in the evenings at Disneyland, it does get hard to get around for just people who are walking, let alone people with strollers and scooters, because it's just so narrow pathways. So that, I think that's probably why people mostly say that, because it does in the evenings get harder to get around. But if you plan for that, and you just know, like, oh, it's going to take me a little more time to get from point A to point B, I think there's no reason why you couldn't go.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Let's see. Genesis is saying, do you have any tips on how to get a reservation at Be Our Guest? So that is a really, really great question about getting those hard reservations. A couple things you can try. You can sign up for alerts from Mouse Dining. I think Touring Plans also has alerts for dining, if I'm thinking correctly.
For Disney World, not Disneyland. But
Okay,
with
good
the
to know.
situation, Disney World. So
Yeah. So you can sign up for alerts through those websites. A lot of the times it's just luck and kind of keeping, check the website, keeping the app up and checking it as frequent as you can. A lot of the times, previously it used to be kind of the 36 to 48 hours before a lot of cancellations would happen. Disney recently changed their dining reservation cancellation policy, and now you have up until 2 hours before the cancellation or before the reservation time to cancel. So that is probably going to change the way that availability pops up in the app. But that may mean you see more same-day reservations. It's hard to say at this point what
do they
that's
have
going
a
to
walk-up
do.
list there, like they do in Disneyland?
I don't know.
Maybe, I wonder if they'll add that, because Disneyland,
Maybe.
for a lot of their popular restaurants that are hard to get reservations for, they'll have a walk-up list that's in the app on the day of that you can actually join and just wait.
Right.
And that's how I eat at Lamplight Lounge. You can even get Blue Bayou that way. That's a lot of the ways you can use it. I wonder if they don't have it at Disney World, I wonder if they'll implement that
adding
based
more.
on this new system,
Yeah,
because that would make sense if people are dropping their reservations.
I don't know for sure if
I don't know if I've
they
ever seen it on the app. I just know Disneyland does it.
Yeah, and I with it being so late at night right now and them not being open, I can't really check. Like it's easier to check when during park hours. So if anyone's got experience with that, let us know.
I wouldn't be surprised if they added it though with this new system, because they're going to have reservations they need to fill. So it makes sense for them to start a walk-up list digitally, knowing that they already do it at Disneyland. So be interesting to see if that happens.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. Again, like I said, you may see more same-day reservations coming up now with that, but I would definitely sign up for those alerts and just, you almost have to stalk
you gotta be
the
fast.
website.
Fast. As soon as the alert hits you, gotta go run to it. Otherwise, it's almost always gone.
Because chances are good there are other people looking for that same reservation that have also signed up for those. So you've got to be ready to go.
On the ball. Yeah. Have all your notifications pop up on your phone for it. But I would also say if you're looking to get it for a future trip that's not like coming up and you're past your, what we call the ADR date, which is your advanced dining reservation date, which is 60 days out right now, right? It used to be 180 or whatever. So I'm like, it's 60 days, right?
Yeah, 60 days. 60 days
90
out.
And 180. And
60 days out from your check-in date.
And of course, if you have a split stay, then you have two of them because it's whatever your check-in day is for your hotel. But and it is usually it's 6 a.m. Eastern time, 3 a.m. Pacific time that opens up online. And so you want to I usually use like I go into like a private browsing mode because it doesn't like all the cookies won't mess up anything, and you log in like right at the drop. I usually use the government time thing. You get really serious about this because they go really fast. And I always book the hardest to get reservation, book at the end of your trip because you get the day you check in, if you're on property, the day you check in plus 10 days. So that means that there are probably at the beginning of your trip, there's other people that booked in that were staying a few days before you that have already had a chance to book all of those. But there's less people that can book at the end of your trip. So if you want to be our guest and you know that's going to make or break your trip, try to book it for the last or second to last day of your trip. Later in your trip, you're more likely to get it at that point at that day. But you gotta be, and this is also if you're like, I don't want to get up early to book these, a good travel agent will be your best friend with this because they will book it for you, and you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night to do it because it is the middle of the night for us. So.
Yeah, and the other thing that you can try to do in the system, depending on some of the harder to get ones you may not be able to, but some of the easier ones you can manipulate your party numbers and kind of see what that does for availability. Because especially if you've got like an odd party or an even party, like sometimes that will vary on what shows up as available. The other tip that I have heard, and again, this I use it, but I don't know whether or not it really helps, is when you go online, they give you different options for the time of day that you're going to select. So they'll give you sometimes like morning, afternoon, and evening, or like breakfast, lunch, dinner, or what, I can't remember exactly what it says. From what I know and from what I've heard, you are more likely to find times if you use the specific time options to search for rather than just the generic time frame. So like, let's say you're looking for lunch. I would start looking at start with the little 10:30 option and go 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12, 12:31 to see if anything pops up rather than just hitting the lunch option. I've heard that works. I've done that before and it has been successful for me. So that's another option that you can look at doing as well.
Yeah, and if you have a larger party, like if you have over 4, I would say it starts to count as a larger party. Sometimes you can get like a combination. Let's say you have eight people traveling. Try booking 2 tables of 4 because they have a lot more 4 chops than they do for 8. So you might be, and then when you check in, you can always ask them, say, I'm connected to this reservation. Is there any way we can sit together? Be prepared though. If they say, I'm sorry, we can't accommodate that, you just might have to sit in different parts of the restaurant, which is a total bummer, but at least you got to eat in the place you want to eat. So just make sure that you know who's going to sit with who. So there's no, gosh, it's so awful when you check in and they're like, but I want to sit with this person.
Right. Well, Okay, good. So I'm not alone. I've got several people in my comment section saying yes. They've also found that to be true, to search with the times and not the general overview. So that seems to be a tip that a lot of people tend to do. So yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, Mike, I don't know about this dining cancellation change and all of these bots hoarding all the dining reservations. We'll see what happens as this change. I don't remember if that was an immediate change that they did, or I knew it's coming soon. If it wasn't immediate with that dining cancellation
You would think
policy.
that they would figure out a way to limit reservations for people, that they can't have like 100 reservations or whatever. You know, I don't know what they got. There's got to be a way that they could figure that out. You know, it's just silly. Yeah. It's silly.
Yeah.
It's silly. It is what it is,
Yes.
though. We do what we can. I hope you get be our guest, because it's really fun to eat in.
Yes. Good. Best of
You
luck.
watch it snow.
We will be sending you virtual pixie dust for your dining reservation. Okay. I think I hit everything that was on my side of the chat. So if I missed your question on my side, please put it back in so that we can answer it. I did my best to go back through. You guys were asking some really great questions that we are very, very happy to have been answering for you. So if I missed it, or if you've got a question that we didn't answer, now is your time to put it in the chat so that way you have the ability to have your question answered by us.
Yeah, this was really fun, though, to have this and get to talk about all kinds of random Disney things.
I know. All sorts of random different topics. Like I said, even just
traveled across the United States and everything.
I know. A couple times, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's all good.
Christina, we can't talk about Eisner. It triggers Jackie.
Christina, listen. You know how much I love and adore you, but you gotta stop. Do not bring me into this conversation. I am purposefully staying out of the Eisner conversation.
We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow with Kirk.
Yes, which speaking of tomorrow.
She's kidding.
Kate,
She's kidding.
Yeah, no, we know. Kate has a show tomorrow evening with our good friend Kirk over at Walrus Carp. They do Disney history, Distery, on Friday nights. So be sure to follow Kate's page so that way you don't miss out on that. It is a ton of fun and so much fun information that they give about all things
we're talking about
Disney.
Main Street vehicles this week. Main Street vehicles. The history of Main Street vehicles. And I feel like it's so many things that people just like walk by them and like ignore them, or they wave to them but they don't like ever ride them. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you, they've got an amazing history in the park. So it's going to be a really great discussion.
Until I saw Lemuel ride one on a live, I never even thought to like ask if I could ride one. And we wanted to this last trip, and just the way that our morning panned out, we weren't on Main Street because it's such a tiny little window that you have to be able to hop on those
You're like
some
down
of those
the street
vehicles. Yeah, literally. So
yeah.
It's still on my list of things my bucket list of things that I still need to do at Disney.
Well, and I would say this is a good tip. I think I'm actually going to make a TikTok about this for our Mom Street community, but I'll let you guys know since you're here. One of the things I think is great to do in Disneyland with littles, especially when there's a lot of lines, is ride on the fire truck. Because if you sit in the back, they let you ring the bell, which is like super fun. And it was one of the original cars that Walt used to ride around in the morning. So like it's great history for parents. It's great fun for kids. And they give you a little sticker that says like Junior Fire Ranger. So they get a sticker at the end of it. And it's like, it doesn't take any time at all to wait for it and hop on and you ride to the end of Main Street, you know, and you can take another vehicle. You have to get off. You can take another vehicle back down if you need to go get your stroller. So, you know, it's really fun. So really fun.
You were talking about the Dapper Dans earlier, and I know there was one morning that Lemuel got to ride in one of the vehicles with the Dapper Dans with him, and I was like, that is like dreams right there. Dreams right there for sure. Oh, Mike is asking any tips to be selected as the parade marshal. So that is legitimately a total random selection. Typically by a manager or a higher up cast member. The only thing that I know is to be there right at rope drop. And that's about all I can tell you.
Luck of the draw. Yeah.
Yeah, it truly is just luck of the draw. And a lot of the times, yeah. A lot of the times they do pick people and families that are like in the area around like the flagpole, and the kind of that space is where I typically have seen or heard of them like approaching people to ask them about it. So if you're like really diehard trying to do it, I guess I would say like hang around in that area, but like I don't
Rope
even
drop
know
the flagpole.
Yes, Mike. So right after you go under the train station, that kind of plaza area is where I believe they typically will select people from. But I don't know that it always happens right at rope drop. I think it's literally just like a random selection by a higher up. That's all that I can really tell you. Unfortunately, it is kind of just a luck of the draw type of thing.
Maybe like a VIP and celebrity, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I don't know that I've ever seen.
I'm gonna do more research into it.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen like celebrities and big names be selected. It's typically just
Random
Hannah and Steve
people
from Arkansas.
Good old
So
Hannah and
I don't
Steve.
know that. Yeah. Good times, good times. They told me all about it. It was great.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
So that's all. That's probably not much help, Mike, but that's about all that I know about that.
I know. It's kind of like getting on the Lily Bell, the train, the caboose train, special caboose train in Disneyland. Like right now, there's no paid tour that you can do to take it. You just kind of have to like, sometimes a cast member will just pixie dust you with it, or you kind of have to know somebody who knows somebody, and that's like the only way to get on it. Just sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Mike says he loves the 5 p.m. flag retreat there. That is a really special moment that they do at Magic Kingdom. If you didn't know,
Disneyland too.
Yeah, if you didn't know, that is something that they do at that flagpole right at the entrance in the evening to take the flag down off of the flagpole, because it is, I don't know, is it true in World and Land that is the only authentic American flag? Is the one on that flagpole? Okay, I knew it was true in World. I didn't know if Land was the same way. So
Disney
all the other
World has like a designated veteran usually that does it, but in Disneyland, it's actually a very special ceremony. If you're a veteran, I would recommend going to it or know somebody in your party who is, because they actually sing, as the Dapper Dans and the band, Disneyland band, they sing each song for each branch of the military, and you come forward and stand under the pole for your branch of the military, and it's like super emotional and special.
Yeah,
so
very, very cool.
Highly recommend that for any veterans we have, or even if you're not a veteran, just to watch the ceremony is pretty special, because they've been doing it for a very long time. So.
Yeah, and at Disney World, like Kate was saying, they typically will have pre-selected a veteran or a family to do that. And then they typically will honor that veteran by gifting them the flag for that day. I have seen quite a lot. So that's something that definitely happens, but it's very, very special. And you're right, Mike. It is, and such an honor for a veteran to be a part of that. Absolutely. Very, very cool experience.
Yeah. Nicole says Dapper Danielle was the Grand Marshal a while back for the parade. My guess is that was like a case of somebody knowing somebody, because she's a former cast member and has connections.
I don't think it was. She has the story on her TikTok, and I literally think it was they were standing like along Main Street, just like hanging out.
They rope dropped the flagpole. I have to watch it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think they literally, because I know she posted the story about it, but like they literally just got approached by like a manager and was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" It was her and a friend, and they were like, "Yeah," but like from what I remember, right? Nah, I'm good.
Nah, I'm good.
I'll just hang out here with all the other peasants in the kingdom. Peasants. But I believe that it wasn't a case of, because like she was a former cast member and trainer and all that, but I think it was just a random pixie dust moment for her and her friend, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah, super fun. All right, well, shall we talk about what's coming up?
Yeah.
On our future episodes, if we have hit all of the questions that we have, I believe, hopefully.
Yes, I've got them all over here.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So next week, Kate is busy doing mom things. So I will have a guest on our episode next week. Again, still working out the details on who that may be. So I stay tuned, and I will keep you posted on who we will have next week. And then following that week, we are going to be doing an entire episode on how to bring Christmas from Disney to your home, or any of the holidays for that matter. So we are going to chat about kind of just some fun little ways that you can bring the parks to your home for the holidays. And then the week after that, we are super excited that we are going to be having a Mom Street Christmas party via our live show. So we've got some things in the planning stages that we're going to be doing for you guys, but that's also going to include the giveaway that Kate mentioned at the beginning of the episode. So if you missed that, we've got these adorable little plushies that will be a giveaway for our viewers. Stay tuned to find out how to enter that giveaway, but that will be a giveaway that we are doing, as well as possibly some stickers or other merch things that we decide.
Yeah, we have to talk about it.
Yes, we have to still plan. We've got some time still, so we haven't planned that far ahead yet. So that is what is upcoming from there. And then the week after that is that last week in December. We are taking the week off. So we are going to have some time with family and some time to take a breath before we jump into the new year and kind of hit the ground running again with some of that really detailed content that we have become known for giving to you guys. So the other thing that I will mention here is if you guys have ideas or suggestions for where you'd like to see our content go come January, we would love to hear from you guys. You can send us a message on our Instagram, our Mom Street USA Instagram. You can message us on the Discord that we've been talking about. A lot of you that are in here we know are already in the Discord. If you're not, link in bio for the Walrus Carp Pocket Fam Discord, and find the Mom Street USA channel on there. As always, we always like to say that this show is for all of us. It's not just for Kate and I. We're here to help as many people as possible just have a better experience at Disney. So we want to make it as community driven and interactive as possible, and make sure that you guys have a say in the information that you guys are looking for.
Absolutely. And this is, I think, especially as we go into the new year, if there's things that you're like, we'd really love an episode about this, or I have a lot of questions about this specific thing, or and it doesn't even like, it can be parks related, but it can also be like mom park related, it can be parent park related, it can be, Disney at home related, it can be all kinds of things. So, if you're just like, I would just really love to know more about this, please, let us know, because we definitely want to make sure that we are giving you guys what you need, not what we think you need. So
Yeah.
So just let us know what you need.
Yeah,
we'll try to help you out.
absolutely. And speaking of kind of links in our bio, there's lots of good stuff in there in the Mom Street section of our bio. If you haven't followed our Mom Street account on TikTok and on Instagram and subscribed on YouTube, head over and do that for us. We greatly appreciate it, to help us build our followings over there. And if you check out that link, you will see that we've got merch. Kate is rocking one of our shirts. And we've also got these adorable little stickers that, like, I feel like the holographic is always, there we go. That's a little bit better.
I know.
There we go. So you can find our stickers and our shirts on Kate's website.
And a hoodie and a beanie. I put stuff in for cold weather because it's cold outside, friends.
It is.
It snowed here today, Jackie. I forgot to mention that. It hasn't snowed in like 2 or 3 years. So it was a big deal. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
My kids were so excited.
Oh,
they
I'm
went out
sure.
there in like no snow gear because they don't have any snow gear, and they're like making snowballs. So I was like, okay,
that's awesome.
All right.
Go for it, kiddos. Go for it. That's awesome. Yes, so you can find short sleeve shirt, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, and beanies all available on there. And Kate's got some other really great merch on there. If you are a fan of her show, her Distery show, and just a fan of her content in general, she's got really great stuff on there as well.
Thank you. Yep. All DisneySisterOwn.com, the link in my bio. But and we also want to appreciate all of those people that have already purchased Mom Street stuff. There's so many of you that have purchased stickers and shirts and stuff. You don't have to buy any of these things to be part of this community. You can just be here and just say hi and give us a like every once in a while. That's great. That's enough for us. But,
Yeah.
it really does help us because we want to pour back into our community as much as possible with the giveaways and things for you guys, so that all of that merch just really helps us give back more to you. So thank you
Absolutely.
for contributing and your support. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everything she said.
Good. Ditto.
Ditto. Same thing. All right. Perfect.
Oh, Christina,
Well-
thank you.
Well, with that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything.
No. Christina says she has her Distery shirt on, and I appreciate that too.
Oh,
So thank you for the
yay.
support.
Yeah. I wore my Free the Pirates shirt yesterday. It is one of my favorite t-shirts that I own now. It is so comfy and so soft
Okay.
that I just like, it doesn't even get hung up because as soon as I wash it, I just end up re-wearing it again.
Oh, I love that.
It's so comfy.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support too, Jackie. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Of course. Of course. See, we all support each other. That's what Pocket Fam is all about.
Absolutely. 100%.
Disney lover. I do not own any Snow White ears. These ones are more like classic mini ears. Kate's got some cute a little tiara on them, a
Sleeping
crown in the
Beauty.
middle of yours. Yeah.
Yeah. The little Sleeping Beauty ears that I made.
I know. I had a
ish.
hard time picking what I
half-made.
wanted to wear tonight. And then I was like, okay, probably for the next 3 episodes, I'm just going to wear my Christmas ears. So I needed to do something different tonight.
I know. I went with not Christmas just for
No.
this week, and then we'll have more.
I did.
So.
I did a little bit of Christmas with my sweatshirt. So
Yeah,
nice.
this was me getting crafty. It's a coat hanger that I bent, and then I painted it, and I
love
glued it on
that.
there.
That's
getting crafty.
amazing. So cute.
Once in a while, I get crafty. I have all kinds of supplies for it. So,
Right.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
We might do something for one of these episodes coming up. Maybe at least some sort of craft involved, right? So we'll see.
Exciting.
Be fun to use my
Hey.
supplies.
Use what
Crafting
you've been
for the first time in
hoarding
like 6
for.
months.
Yeah. Hey, you know,
God,
you
it's
got to
just so
start
much work.
somewhere. You got to start somewhere. Yeah.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well,
Well.
thank you guys all for joining us. And thank you, Kate, for everything and for hanging out. And it was a fun episode.
It was super fun. I loved all these questions. You guys came up with some really good ones. So
Yeah.
thank you
Love it.
for submitting those and asking your questions. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Jackie will see you next week. I'll see you tomorrow for a Distery. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Have
All
a
right.
great evening, guys.
Have a great night, you guys. Bye.
Happy holidays, everybody.